Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm truly and sincerely very happy to be here with you. Very much so. It's my pleasure to be able to reach deep within myself and draw upon the experiences, the inspirations and lessons of a lifetime. I'm Dr. Arnold Nerenberg. I've been a clinical psychologist licensed to practice in the state of California for over 46 years, and I've been in the field for about 50 years. And in 7 weeks, I'll be 80 years old. I can't wait. I love getting older. I'm also very grateful to still be on this earth. I've been through different illnesses when I was younger, heart attack at 61, prostate cancer 65. I'm glad I'm here and in good health. I'm very thankful. So it's a great privilege to be in your presence. My intention is to impact you, to reach your hearts, to reach your thoughts in such a manner that will uplift you for all your life, and to pass that knowledge down to your descendants over the generations. That would be my hope. It's not in my hands whether that happens, but I'm doing my best to make this happen. The title of today's presentation is, "We belong to our children more than they belong to us." We belong to our children more than they belong to us. So I'm talking as a psychologist of nearly 50 years. But I'm also talking as a father of 7 children, 1 stepchild, 1 stepson, and 6 biological children. So I have a lot of personal experience and a lot of professional experience, and I've seen probably about 50% of my patients have children, so I gather all their experiences, my experience. So I'm going to bring to you the results of that inquiry and that clinical experience and my research experience with this. Now, when my son Justice, I don't know how old he was, 5 or 6, I remember taking him to a bus stop. He was going to go to kindergarten, and he was going off, and I felt teary because I knew he now belonged to society. He belonged to the school and their friends, and they're going to have more. They're going to be with him more than I am. And your children, when they're growing up, their teachers and friends, and they're with them much more than you are. And that's part of what happens where we belong to our children more than they belong to us, because they're being raised as society's children, internalizing the values of that society through the schools, through the media, through their friends, through whatever mechanism you want to talk about. That's who's raising them. We have a tremendous impact. But you look at from a time perspective, that's what's going on. So then their friends become attached to their friends. Then as they get older, they may have a girlfriend or boyfriend. That person becomes more of a priority than we are. Now, our children are always our priority. To a normal parent, we're talking about a normal parent. And I'm particularly going to be looking at America and the Western nations. Other societies, their children are super important to them, but there's some unique dimensions here. So it's about a normal parents, normal children. So when they have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or even just their friends, they become more of a priority than we are. That's a reality. Part of that's a seeking of their individuation, of their independence. It's typically we regard it as a normal process, certainly the usual process in Western civilization. So their friends become a priority. If they have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, they're a priority over us. However, they're still our priority. So there you have it right there. We belong to our children more than they belong to us. Now, when they marry and they have children, well, their children are far more of a priority than we are. They love us. There's a connection. But we think of them more deeply and profoundly than they think about us. And certainly we feel more, they're protective of us, but we're far more protective of them. The worst thing for a parent, there's nothing worse than burying your child, burying a son or burying a daughter. We're very vulnerable through our children. On the other hand, when they bury us, it's a loss. It could be a huge loss to be mourned for a long period of time, but it's nowhere near as severe as us burying them. And some might even say that it's even harder on the mother burying a child, but just any parent, but on the mother might even be worse. So the deaths of our children, the possible death of our child, is devastating, more devastating to us than our deaths are to them. They already have their significant others. They may have their own children. They have their lives, or they went to school. They're working. So they've gone on with their lives. And I'm not trying to minimize how important we are to them, but we belong to our children more than they belong to us. Now, when you want to really look at the full picture, there's another balancing factor that's opposite of that. Our children internalize us. Our children internalize us more than we internalize them. So we're more a part of our children than they are of us. Let's get that. We belong to our children more than they do to us, but we are more a part of our children than they are of us. We don't internalize our children. They internalize us. They internalize their mother, their father. They act like their mother or father. They look like us because of the genetics, but also they become us psychologically. So they've internalized us more than we've internalized them. So that's the other side of the coin here. Now, where do we go from here? Well, sometimes it's hard for a parent to allow the child to move in the direction of their independence. And I've seen this, where the son's mother might become even jealous of his wife because the wife is more of a priority. And so she'll maybe interfere, or you have some husbands who are more connected to their mothers than they are to their wives. That's not uncommon. More connected to their mothers than they are to their wives. And the mother encouraged that. Now, the most honorable way for a parent to deal with it is this way. The most honorable would be to sit down with your son or your daughter, in fact, in front of the spouse, in front of their spouse. If they're married, you say, if it comes to it, I want you to place, let's say you're talking to your daughter, I want you to place your husband before me. If it comes to a choice between the two of us, place him before me. I know you love me and I'm important to me, but that's your husband. Now, because in the end, who are they going to have? They're not going to have you or me. They're going to have their spouse. God willing, if their marriage goes on, which we're assuming that it is, who's their life dependent on now? Not us. They did when they were youngsters, but not now. Their lives are most tied to their spouse. And it's natural that they put the spouse before us. Doesn't mean they're going to abandon us. Doesn't mean they love us less. But that's what you have to wish. That's the honorable wish to have for your children, that they place their spouse before you. That we wish for them to place their spouse before us. Some children, it's harder to do than others. Some children, it's easy. Hey, make sure you put him first. Another one going, well, I should want you to put him first, but I'm really attached to you. But that's really the honorable approach. So we're going to talk about honor. So we're seeing that our children are our priorities, and typically we become less of a priority as their lives progress. That's why the theme is we belong to our children more than they belong to us. That's the reality. And it's painful for a lot of parents. They're seeing that the children, aren't calling regularly. Maybe you'd like them to call every day or at least once a week. They're not doing it. You're calling them as they get older. Now, certainly when our children belong to us when they're infants, 1 year old or 6 months old, before they're walking around. You can move them here and there. They kind of belong to you. You put them in the car, you put them in the crib, you put them wherever you're going to put them. You could say the child belongs to you. Once they can walk, say they hit 2 years old, zoom, they're going that way, and you're calling them, and they may or may not come when you call them. So as soon as they have locomotion, that's when it starts, where we belong to our children more than they do to us. Maybe at a year old it begins, and then it progresses. I say they go to school, they have friends, and then they have boyfriends and girlfriends, and they get a spouse, and they have their children. When they have their children, that's their priority, their spouse, their family, that family. So when I say the honorable thing is for you actually to wish this. We don't love them less. We want them to have a good life, and we know for them to have a good life, they need to put their spouse first. Otherwise, a terrible thing can happen. If, let's say, a son puts his mother before his wife, well, then the wife could become jealous of the mother, and there's going to be a rivalry, and it's not healthy. It is not healthy, and I've seen it often with people. I've seen it. Now, if a wife sees that her husband is making her the priority, then she can be her loving self to her mother-in-law. But you don't want a rivalry there. So the mother has to say to her son, particularly her son, make sure you put your wife before me. I'm always there for you. I love you no matter what. But make sure of that. That's the honorable thing to do. So what do I mean by honor? By honor, I mean loyalty to your highest constructive values. Loyalty to your highest constructive values as enshrined within the 4 commandments of honor. The 4 commandments of honor promote a very healthy flow of energy within ourselves, very healing. And they are these 4 thoughts. I wish you well. I take full responsibility for co-creating my reality and my problems. I'm grateful for the power I gain from hardship. And one of 2, either I seek always to serve my highest values, or if you believe in God as I do, God, your wish is my only wish. Those are the 4 commandments of honor. Now, you have to be very well versed in honor to want your children to put their spouse before yourself. You have to be, because the natural thing is to want that child for yourself, even though they're adults. So you have to commit yourself to these 4 commandments of honor. So then there's a pledge where you're agreeing to repeat them 3 times a day for life. So the pledge goes this way. As a disciple of honor, I pledge myself all the days of my life to the 4 commandments of honor. And I'll teach them to those I love. I'll repeat them every morning, afternoon, and evening, and listen to myself recite them. There you go. So then now you have a lifetime commitment. Now the next step is to have a bridge from the realm of honor to reality, which is, what's the most honorable thing to think, say, and do? So you say the 4 commandments of honor, and then the bridge. So for me, it will be, God, your wish is my only wish. I wish you well. I take full responsibility for co-creating my reality and my problems. I'm grateful for the power I gained from hardship. What's the most honorable thing to think, say, and do? Then any situation we're in, that's the gold standard. We say to ourselves, what's the most honorable thing to think, say, and do? Well, the most honorable thing in terms of your children being married is to instruct them and wish for them to put their spouse first before everybody. Before everybody. So that's the most honorable thing. So you have to be very well versed in the way of honor, which will affect your entire lives. Well, that's pretty much what I have in mind to present to you. We belong to our children more than they belong to us, and so that we see that our children will become us more than we become them. Even though we learn from our children, no doubt about it, but they become us much more than we become them. And I'll tell you a little secret. When we pass away, it's going to be a huge loss for them, but they will experience us more intensely inside. Everything you've said to your child will become more alive. All the memories will become more alive, extremely alive. So we continue within their hearts and in their beings very powerfully even after we leave. So let's see, Lee, Michael, Michael, is there anything you'd like to say about or questions about this or comments?
Well, I'd like to say, in regards to parents, when your parents pass away, now that my parents are both gone, there's a lot of things that I have to recollect on what they told me in the past. So you're absolutely right. I think about a lot of things that they told me.
The words come back powerfully, very, very, very powerfully.
Absolutely.
For me, it's mostly what my father said more than my mother said, but her being and givingness, that comes to me. Her smile comes into me more. But my father's words just live in me. I mean, I quote them all the time. Lee, what about some of your thoughts and reactions to what I've said?
I've lost my entire family in a period of about 3.5 to 4 years. My brother passed first, then my mother passed, and then my father passed. But because of the way that they instilled the basic principles of honor and dignity in me, it always held me together, even in my dark days. And since I've learned the path of honor and brought that on top of what they've taught me, I live by that now. And it's made me an unbelievable life in my later years.
Wow, that's a beautiful thing. And your parents left you a beautiful legacy, as did Michael's and did mine. Well, it's been my pleasure and my privilege to be able to present to you. We belong to our children more than they belong to us. Thank you so much for being here. It's been a privilege for me to be in your presence and have this opportunity to communicate with you.